Funny that it's Essendon player testing positive or something, isn't it?
Pull your finger out of your ass.
Jeez.
This is my first ever football jumper. My three votes, I should say. My three goats. My three votes for
Three
Charlie.
goats.
Oh, top of the world, mate.
What a time to be alive.
I look a bit like Nicol Bellic from GTA 4, I feel, with this.
That could get dangerous.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 70 of the Pressure Point podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Quinn DeLuca. Mate, can you believe we're episode 70 already?
I can't at all. I was just thinking that as you were saying it, I thought, geez, 70 is a lot of episodes. I can't believe we've made it this far, especially through a couple pandemics as well now, or one big pandemic, I should say. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great. It's been 70 memorable episodes, that's for sure. But it's fitting that on our 70th episode, we've got a very special guest. We've got Western Bulldogs legend and media personality, Brad Johnson. Welcome to the show.
G'day, Marcus, Quinn. How are you guys?
Very good. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for jumping on, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on board.
Nah, no worries whatsoever. I only heard good things from a couple of colleagues of mine. So more than happy to jump in and hopefully have a laugh with you boys.
Absolutely. Well, that's the plan. Well, I mean, before we get into things, obviously we've been living in a pandemic, as I mentioned, and we had a little chat off there. But for everyone else listening, how's life been through the pandemic for you and your family?
Oh, look, it hasn't been too bad for us. We started a business in the pandemic, so that's been a challenge in itself. But that's been ticking along okay. And look, with footy continuing on, the AFL done a really good job in terms of keeping the seasons going the last couple of years. So that's kept us, I suppose, busy from a work point of view. And we're based in Geelong, so life for us, they put up the Ring of Steel last year, so we're able to still get around down here. And then obviously with what's going on at the moment, we've got a little bit more freedom in terms of what we can and can't do down this way at the moment. But we're still obviously thinking of everyone else and really just hoping that the numbers, go the right way over the next week or so, that everyone can get that opportunity to get out and about again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think numbers today weren't promising, but I feel like this time last year we're not a lot's changed since this time last year. I mean, so it's a bit frustrating, but no, we'll keep playing through. We've done it all before. So, but let's talk about you. Let's talk about footy. That's what we're here for. Mate, this resume, it's quite impressive. You're 3-time Charles Sutton medalist, 6-time All-Australian, captain in 2006, 5-time Bulldogs leading goal kicker, captain of the club for 4 years, Bulldogs team of the century in AFL Hall of Fame. Mate, that's a pretty impressive resume. And as we do with all our guests, we usually start from the start. So, mate, fill us in. How did that all start, and where'd your love for footy come from to forge a career like that?
Yeah, look, it's a lot of luck along the way, to be honest with you, boys. The one that I don't have that we'd all love is that Premiership Cup. That would have been nice as well. But look, I've loved the game since I was a little kid. I didn't start playing until I was 13 years of age, and I had to wear a massive helmet back in the day. You can imagine back in about 1990 what the helmets looked like back then. So I had to wear one of those. My mum made me wear a helmet to start. But I was into little athletics is my main sport, I suppose, outside of footy. I just love it. I always have since I was little. Grew up watching Michael Jordan, the Coolangatta Gold, all these things that I loved growing up, those endurance-based sports as well. So that were my passions. And then I was then I started playing when I was under 13s and basically played for three years at Hoppers Crossing, where I grew up, and then went and played 1 year at Williamstown under 19s and reserves. When I was 15, I was a little bit soft. I was a little bit outside in the way that I played. I had to toughen up a little bit. And I remember having a really bad sort of representative game. And from that game, I think there was about 15 or so guys that got invited to the Bulldogs under 19s. I wasn't one of them to train, and a bit obviously disappointed and shattered with that. So had to work on some things. So I went and tried out for Williamstown in their under 19s as a 15-year-old and made the team. So I played with Williamstown for 1 year, played 4 reserves games at the end of that year. So played against men as a youngster, which was good. And then I went back to the Western Jets and played under 18 footy. So I went back with confidence because I played against men the year before, playing against kids my own age. So, and I was drafted as a 17-year-old and walked into the club at the Bulldogs. It happened pretty quickly for myself. I was always little. I didn't grow until I was probably about 16 anyway. So, and I'm not that tall anyway. I grew to 5'11", nearly 6 foot. So it's not huge, but it was big enough to start to compete against some of these guys my own age, more effectively.
Yeah, you mentioned Williamstown. How was that experience there? Obviously, they're still a pretty big club, and obviously playing in the VFL as well. How was that experience just before your AFL career got started?
Oh, look, that was enormous. I'd loved the club growing up. Always went to watch a lot of their home games and was obsessed with Simon Lloyd at fullback and Danny Delray and Chops Rickman up forward. Sadi Ghazi was a gun for Williamstown at the time. McTaggart. I could name a few more, but I just loved going to watch them on a weekly basis. So then to be at the same club, I know we're in the under 19s, but just rubbing shoulders with these guys was just huge. And so then, and I was lucky. Look, the under 19s boys really looked after me because I was so young. They really taught me a lot. They taught me the right way to play, which was really important. And then I was lucky, as I said, to get 4 reserves games at the end of that year. So, I kicked 1 goal 7 in my first reserves game for Williamstown. It would have been nice if it was the other way around, but from there, that's where my confidence in my game really sort of went to a level where I knew I'd be able to sort of compete at sort of any level.
Yeah, awesome. And then, talk to us about your debut for the Doggies and how that all went down. Obviously, debut's a massive deal. Every player remembers their first game. Explain to us, how that all went down for you in that experience.
Oh, look, it was a buzz. It took a while into the season. It took to about round 16, I think, in my first year. It was basically I turned 18, and the following week I got my first senior game. So it was like they waited till I stepped into that sort of adulthood, and then they selected me. But no, I had to really earn my spot within the lineup. It was an amazing experience. It really was. It was at the Whitten Oval. It was actually Tony Shaw's record-breaking game for Collingwood. So the week before, Doug Hawkins broke the record for the Bulldogs, and my best mate Rowan Smith did his shoulder in that game. So I replaced him the following week and got my first look at footy at the Whitten Oval. It was amazing. It was a packed house, and just running out, it's that adrenaline that you get for the first time. That's what fuels you to want to be a part of that every single week. It's an amazing experience. And Tony Liberatore gave me my first kick in footy. So a nice little handball from Liver, and I kicked it to Luke Beveridge. So it might have gone along the ground, but that's okay. It still went in the right direction. And that's basically what I remember. The rest is a bit of a blur off the back of that.
Yeah, well, it's every little kid's dream, I guess, to go through that experience, and you were lucky enough to do so. And you see some players out there, past and present, and you think it looks like they potentially take their opportunity at AFL level for granted a little bit, but you were the complete opposite. You always seem to be the happiest guy on the ground. Obviously the famous smile of yours and all that. So, is it safe to say that every time you ran on the ground, there was just a pure feeling of jubilation?
Oh, look, I was pretty much hitting myself every time I ran onto the ground. Don't worry about that. And I think that those nerves are something that comes with playing, playing every single week, regardless of whatever level. It's a little bit of the unknown. You've prepared well, but you're running out there, just hoping that it goes really well from a start point. So, but I loved it. I've always loved the game. I loved pulling on the colours. So hopefully that was something that sort of, came out in the way that I played. I was pretty passionate about the footy club. I was passionate about my teammates. I worked as hard as I could, but I enjoyed doing it. It was never a chore. It was never a grind for myself to, get through a pre-season or work through certain scenarios in season, whether we're having winning seasons or losing seasons. I still really enjoyed, the opportunity that I was given.
Well, you can tell that you did a lot of hard work, and although you enjoyed it, it was still a lot of hard work, and that obviously ended up getting you into the AFL Hall of Fame, like we touched on earlier. You're in some great company there. What does it mean to be inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Oh, look, it means a lot. It was a lot of hard work to, even be considered in that sort of light. And I still look at some of the guys that I was inducted with Matty Richardson and Andrew McLeod and Cooter, and you sort of go, Warren Treadray, I think so. You sort of go, wow, these guys have achieved probably more in the game than I did, especially someone like Andrew McLeod, Norm Smith medalist 2 years in a row, premiership player. So yeah, during that period when I was inducted, they had themes, and one of the themes was loyalty, and being a one club player, I think was something that back then was held in a really high regard. So I think that enabled me probably to jump in it possibly a few years earlier. But it's something you don't think about it when you're playing. It's one of those rewards that it's in the hands of others. So ultimately you've got no say in it. It's up to others and how they see you as a player and a person that make these decisions. And when they do, obviously we're pretty wrapped, myself and the family, to accept the award.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned one club player as well. I know a lot of players at the start of their careers, they strive to be a one club player. Would you say you're super proud of that? Obviously, you didn't get your premiership, but you play over 300 games for the Doggies. Do you say that's a pretty proud achievement to just be a one club player? Yeah,
I think so now, looking back, but I was never sort of, I suppose one thing, I never really came out of contract with the club, so I was never in that position that no other club ever came knocking. So I was happy to just to keep being rolled out on a weekly basis at the Western Bulldogs. No, honestly, I was never going anywhere. I loved it. I was really sort of, you're never comfortable in an AFL environment, but understanding the club for such a long period of time, there was no way I was stepping outside to go to another environment to start again. I just knew where we're at. The coaches right along the whole journey I had, I clicked with pretty much all of them. So, that made life a lot easier as well, knowing that you could roll out every week and try and have the biggest impact that you possibly could.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we'll get into some of the big games that you've played in. Start with probably a low one, and then we'll get into a good one. But obviously, the 1997 prelim final is pretty famous for a lot of footy fans. Maybe not so much for the Doggies fans and the Doggies players on the day, but it's up there with one of the best. What was the experience like in that game? Obviously, pretty heartbreaking, but if you're happy to talk about it, what was your experience like through that?
Oh, look, no, I'm happy to talk about anything, to be honest with you boys. It's just part of your journey. It's what you've lived. So, it's just the nature of what we went through at the time. Look, 97 was a massive year for the club, because 96, we had You the Dog, we had players that were really sick with some serious illnesses. We nearly folded as a footy club at the end of 96, and then David Smorgon came in. We changed from Footscray to the Western Bulldogs in 97. We started training in October, which no one did back then. So we got ourselves as fit as we possibly could. In 97, we went from 15th to, second on the ladder, which was a huge year, and we're 20 points up in a prelim final, which was huge. I think we kicked 6 behinds in the last quarter. So it's our own fault that we didn't go through to a grand final. Adelaide and Jarman turned it on, but if we were good enough, we would have kicked 1 or 2 and sealed victory for the footy club. It just wasn't our time, unfortunately. So we played pretty well throughout that year, but yeah, it's just the devastation of losing the way that we did, being in the position we were at 3/4 time was heartbreaking for a lot of us. I was a bit younger at the time, so I was only about 20, 21 years of age. So you sort of think, yeah, this is going to continue on for years to come. You work out pretty quickly that it can drop away, pretty quickly. You got to make the most of those opportunities when they come. So, and we just didn't at that period of time. And 98 was the same. We went to another prelim against Adelaide, and Andrew McLeod turns it on, and we thought we'd be able to repay them from the year before, and they just destroyed us. So, that's just the nature of what we had to live through at that period of time.
Yeah, for sure, geez. I can't imagine the heartbreak, and especially with fans. I mean, it's probably made up for with the 2016 premiership, but yeah, geez, that would have been a tough day for a lot of them. But going on to probably a highlight, that win against Essendon in 2000. It was your regular home and away game, but the Bombers were undefeated. Obviously, it was round 21. So they were having arguably the greatest season of all time. How was that game? It's obviously a very famous one as well. What was the experience like in that?
Oh, the build-up was huge. A lot goes into that. Look, you can judge the 2 hours and the execution there, but we had it was only pretty much a week. It was pretty sort of fast-tracked the way that Terry Wallace wanted us to play with, because Essendon was so good. They hadn't lost a game that year, so how could we surprise them with doing something different? So I remember we did one session at Spotswood, we did a couple down at Werribee. We just went and trained away from the footy club, worked on this mass flood that we were going to do just to try and clog them up, and we executed pretty well. At the first quarter, Essendon were just in front. I remember Mark McCurry and Joe Mercedes were sort of saying at quarter time, "What are you boys up to tonight?" Didn't expect that sort of game plan against them because they were going along so well. 3/4 time, I think we were about 15 points down. Don't keep me on that margin, but they were just in front of us, the Bombers, and Terry Wallace called us in at 3/4 time and said, "Look, we're releasing now. We're going to go play the way that we know, play fast, play attacking. Let's get this win." And so we went from the mass flood for 3 quarters to all out attack, and we're able to bridge the gap. And Chris Grant kicks this unbelievable goal on his left foot from the boundary line to put us in front, and then Rowan Smith sealed it right on the siren. So it was a huge emotional sort of win for the footy club, and one that sort of we're pretty proud of. Although Essendon was the loss they had to have, they went on and won the premiership that year quite easily. But it was still good to be able to achieve something against the best side of the year in the year 2000.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great game for a neutral to watch as well. I think I've watched that game plenty of times, and there was that period of footy where I loved the most around the 2000s, early 2000s. But speaking of that era, and a year later against the same team, it's obviously that famous Gary Moorcroft, Mark. You
why are you saying it? Why are you so nervous, Marcus? It's all right, mate. You're allowed to bring this stuff up, mate. It's all good. You don't have to be nervous when asking me about it.
All right. Well, I'll go straight for it then. How was that experience with Gary Moorcroft sitting on top of your head?
No, that's better. You know what? It was. I didn't see it, of course, because I was underneath him. But I've said a couple of times. I remember my teammate Ben Harrison, who was behind it. He cheered the mark. It was that big. But when I realised it was something special when I stood up after being put on the deck from Gary after the leap that he did. And 40,000 people, including Bulldogs fans, were on their feet giving him a standing ovation. So I thought something big has just happened, and then watching it on the scoreboard, that it's an enormous grab. Like, really is the only positive for me is I never played in the back pocket again in my life. So that was one good thing. But outside of that, it was special. You got to celebrate, those sort of moments in the game. Yeah, I was the step ladder, but reality is it was bloody special.
Well, like you said, it's one of those things where you make that kind of mistake and you never play that position again. And it's almost smart if you think about it. You don't want to play in the back pocket. Just don't do a good job and they won't play it.
He was unstoppable anyway that night, Gary Moorcroft. He was on fire.
He kicked a few that night, yeah.
He was flying. So he got rid of a few of our key defenders, and then you throw me down there. I've got no idea how to play defence. None whatsoever. That's why I stood 5 meters in front of him, thinking, oh well, The other part about that mark is that Scotty Lucas has never kicked on his right foot, and with that kick, he kicks on his right foot, so he doesn't hit it as well as he normally would, and just sits it perfectly on my head.
It was written in the stars, that one. I think it was just meant to happen. It all fell into place perfectly for Gary Moorcroft. But you touched earlier on Terry Wallace, and we've all seen him get pretty fired up at certain times. So what do you reckon one of the worst sprays the team copped from Terry Wallace, or even you personally copped from him?
Oh, he taught us some life lessons. Don't worry about that. He was a good coach. He had the good mix. He could hit you between the eyes and tell you where you need to get better as a player, but it was always footy specific. And then so he built some resilience with you as a player, but then also, was pretty good in giving you a pat on the back when you'd done pretty well also. But look, we had a number of, different challenges under Terry Wallace. After that prelim, he came the next day with "We blew it" written on his head, sort of, so he hit it home pretty quickly that we'd made a big mess of the 97 prelim. It was really theme based, Terry. So we had a lot of games that were we'd sign game balls or we'd have plaques and we'd do different things to motivate us. And we rarely let him down in those situations, which was good. I remember when it was my 21st and we lost, got smashed at Princes Park, and he looked me in the eyes and he in his way, in a real sort of angry sort of fashion, like what he said in Year of the Dog, if you guys get a pat on the back, I'll spew up. In that sort of tone, he basically said, you should have been just at your 21st setting up for that today. So like he really was able to sort of hit home in terms of the moments to make you think about your footy. And later that night, he put your arm around me at the 21st and says, I want you to have a crack tonight. It's your 21st. So he played both cards, really well. And but he could hit you between the eyes, as could any coach. To be honest with you, when they got fired up, it was they got on a roll. It was something you just had to sit there and not say a word. You just had to cop it and move on.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine it would have been exactly what we sort of see on TV with Terry, pretty straight between the eyes. So, but going back to players you played with, who would you say is the best one you've played with throughout your career?
Oh, Chris Grant was unbelievable. Honestly, he was nicknamed the Rolls Royce for a reason. He was just unbelievable with the way that he could do things on his left and right. Some of the things we'd see at training that no one witnessed. You just sort of sit there in awe of this guy, and you'd run out behind him on match day when he was our captain, and the presence was enormous. You just knew you were in good hands. So he was the best. Scotty West won 7 best and fairest in that period that I played as well. So just phenomenal through the midfield. Smitty was unbelievable. Look, I could keep going, and then towards the end of my career playing with Lindsay Gilby and Robert Murphy and Daniel John Syracuse, Daniel Cross, Matty Boyd, all these guys that went on to have unbelievable careers at the club. Some premiership players at the club as well. And even the likes of Ryan Griffin and Adam Cooney as young players were just stars. You could see they were going to be stars of the competition. So had a few along the way, but none better than Granny.
Yeah, I thought that might be the answer. He was an absolute superstar. Loved watching him play. But let's move on to the 2016 Premiership. What were your thoughts and feelings around that? Obviously, it was a landmark occasion for the footy club, a very emotional one, and it was a final series which every other supporter was cheering on the Bulldogs. How was that day for you personally?
Oh, the whole final series, you're right, was unbelievable. Yeah. The Bulldogs lost round 23 to Freo, and everyone thought that was it. They'd be knocked out of the finals in the first week, and they beat West Coast. When they kicked Hawthorn out, I probably knew then that we were a realistic chance, and the prelim was that intense. I remember sitting with Mitch Hahn in Sydney at the prelim final. Basically, arm in arm, just like that, nervous with each other. And then the granny was just phenomenal. Look, for me personally, I grew up barracking for the Bulldogs, so I'd been waiting my whole life to see a flag. Coming through as a youngster, watching the game, and then not having that opportunity as a player. But my love for the club has been there since I was really little. So it was a huge day for myself and my family for many reasons, but couldn't have been prouder of the club and what the players achieved and those sort of things that went with it. And, we were nervous right throughout the game, but then to be on the ground, with my kids and my wife when they held up the Premiership Cup was something that we'll never forget. So it was just an amazing day, an amazing experience. And it was good to, have a small part in it. The best part for me though, with Fox, I interviewed Chris Hemsworth after the game in the change rooms. That was pretty cool to be able to do that. So, there were many highlights that come with the day.
Absolutely. What was Chris Hemsworth like? I know he's a Bulldogs supporter, but is he as passionate as he claims to be?
Absolutely. Absolute champion bloke. Like it was phenomenal, being able to meet himself and his family after the game. And yeah, so it was a pretty sort of special moment, obviously with the personality and the, I suppose, the presence in the room. As you can imagine, you got Chris Hemsworth in your change room celebrating a premiership, but his love for the Bulldogs was like anyone else that was in that room, super passionate about the club, followed them for a very long time. And I'm sure he was super buzzed to be in there when the players, sang that song, for winning the flag with the Premiership Cup in the middle, and everyone's going nuts. And he was a big part of that as well.
Well, I guess they're the perks of being pretty famous, aren't they? You can pretty much do whatever you want and get wherever you want to be. But speaking of premierships, this year, the modern day Dogs 2021, they're looking pretty good. They're looking likely to make it there on the last day of September or October, whenever the grand final is going to be this year at this rate. But what are your thoughts on the Dogs this year and how they're tracking?
Oh, they've been going really well. It's since winning the flag, it's the first time they've looked like a top 4 team. I know they've missed finals since the flag and got going a little bit last year, and then where they're at now, that was the biggest challenge. How are they going to become a top 4 team in the competition? And Marcus Bontempelli's been just unbelievable with what he's been able to do this year, and well looked after in the midfield. The Bulldogs are at the moment with some of the other stars in there, and that's the biggest challenge for them, I think, leading into the final series. The midfield's been a little bit down the last few weeks, and the results haven't gone the Bulldogs' way. So that's their biggest challenge. Is if the midfield stands up in the final series, they could go right through and win it. But Geelong are in a really sweet spot at the moment. Port Adelaide are flying, so it's tough. You get to this end of the season, and you're playing teams that have had equivalent years in terms of what they've been able to do, win-loss, but more importantly, they've got some superstars in their teams as well, the opposition. So it's difficult, but they'll be looking at the Dogs the same way. The fact that McRae, Bontempelli, Liberatore, Hunter, all through the midfield is pretty big for the Bulldogs. But they've got their challenges, and we'll see if they're good enough. But they're in a good spot at the moment.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think the midfield team that the Bulldogs have at the moment is elite, and Liberatore, I think, has probably had one of his best seasons he's had to date. So you have every chance to make it. But obviously, you're in the media now after an illustrious AFL career. How did you make that transition from AFL player to media personality? Was it difficult, or did you find the move quite easy?
No, I was lucky throughout my career that it's one thing I was always honest with the club about. Sometimes you can do media when you're playing. If you play poorly, they'll say, look, that's the first thing that's got to go. You've got to refocus back on your footy. But from the outset, it was something that I always wanted to be a part of post-footy. So I worked in the media for about 8 to 10 years as I was a player as well. So I was able to get some good grounding, get some great education from some guys that were older than me that took me under their wing a little bit in terms of media and mentoring me. So, and the club were great. Even if I was having a bad patch of form, it wasn't something they come and said, you're not allowed to do that anymore. They were really good. And I didn't bring any problems on the club anyway with speaking in the media on a regular basis. So they were comfortable with that. And that gave me confidence then once I finished, I was lucky to get offered a deal with Fox, and I've been there 10 years and I absolutely love it. It's a great place to work. There's unbelievable guys and girls that work at Fox. We're all pretty close in terms of our relationships. And I think that sort of comes out a little bit in terms of what we deliver on a weekly basis with the games. But we have a lot of fun in there. It really is a great place to work.
Well, you've basically answered my next question already, but I'll ask it again anyway. We've had Kath Loughnan, Tom Morris, and Ben Waterworth on the podcast already, and they were all fantastic guests. And we're sort of working our way through the Fox Footy ranks at the moment, just going through everybody slowly. But obviously, what is it like working with all them? Obviously, a lot of fun, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I've worked with Kath. Took over hosting Saturday Stretch, which I've done for 5 years now, and she took over a couple of years ago, and with her hosting, it's gone to a whole new level. She's an absolute superstar in the making. She's doing a lot more now, which is great. She hosted a week or two of 360. She's flying, absolutely flying. But she's a ripper, as you guys well and truly know, to go with it. Extremely down to earth, just a hard worker who, she's good with us as well. She jumps in. She's not afraid to give us a clip every now and then if we need it. So she's great value. And Tommy Morris is leading the way with breaking the news. And I didn't know Jordan Lewis too much until the last couple of years. And it's amazing when you you watch someone and you play against them and you're like, I can't stand this bloke. But when you actually get to work with them and meet them away from the actual footy field, you realise they're absolute rippers. So Geordie and I get along extremely well. We see the game the same way, so that's what makes it pretty easy in terms of us working together on a Saturday night. So we've been going strong the last couple of years. They're a great crew to work with. So we're pretty lucky that each Saturday night I get to spend with those guys.
Yeah, and the chemistry that you guys have clearly shows on air as well. Like us as fans watching from home, you can see that you're all mates, and it comes off so nicely. So on another topic though, I know yourself and your wife Donna have started up a female impact protection business called Xena, and I know I haven't done it any justice by describing it like that, but can you tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing there?
That is spot on, Quinn, honestly, because that's what it is. It's a specifically designed vest for females playing contact or collision-based sports. So any type of collision, our vest will help it. It's got breast and rib protection, and it's been great fun. Honestly, it's something that my wife's pretty passionate about. I've jumped on board and well and truly a part of the business. It's what we work on every single day of the week, trying to establish ourselves in the sporting landscape. It's great. We had 60 AFLW girls wear it last season, so then the flow-on's been great into the community level. All the girls love wearing it. It gives them the protection. They recover better. It's only weighs 160 grams. It's really light. It doesn't restrict any movement or anything like that. So it's been great fun, and it's not only footy now. We work in the soccer space, or basketball, lacrosse, and softball, and surf boat rowers. We've got the vest at the Paralympics coming up. We've joined forces with the Aussie Bells, the goalball team. So that's been they're in the blind sports space. That's been amazing to learn a little bit more about that. So we're learning every single day with the vest, but most importantly, it's just adding a layer of protection for the girls when they are out there playing, and they're all jumping on and loving it when they put it on. Our feedback that we're getting is excellent. So it's been a good journey. It's something that it's only the beginning for us, but we're pretty passionate about taking it and giving every sort of female participant at any level of sport that opportunity. And it's all types. It's from your junior stuff right through to the senior girls playing footy, and everyone's at different stages of life as well, returning mums and athletes that have gone through some health issues that are returning to play. And we find out a lot about different types of individuals out there that have got their own challenges that we can assist with our best. So it's been a great journey for, we've been going 5 years, but the last 2 since selling it, and we're only dipping our toe in the water at the moment. So hopefully the next few years we can, go a little bit deeper with it and introduce ourselves to a lot more different sports, but also the athletes, which are and the participants, which is the most important thing.
Well, in saying that, you must be wrapped at the moment with the increase of female participation in not only footy, but sports in general. I mean, obviously footy's been a big one, and us being a footy podcast have taken a lot of notice in that. So you must be pretty wrapped from not only a business standpoint, but just a social standpoint, when the fact that females are getting more involved.
I think it's brilliant. I'm not just saying that because we're involved heavily in female sport now, but even prior to that, Donna and I used to sort of talk all the time and say, we're only seeing 50% of the talent. You know what I mean? We need to now start to see a full book of talent, which is what we're getting. And I think that's right across the board in terms of what, the Matildas are doing in soccer, or, what the rugby sevens girls are doing, or what the AFLW girls are doing, or the WNBL, and what Australia did at the Olympic Games. And all these things fall through the levels. We understand that, but the amount of coverage now that the athletes are being exposed through, I think we're all sitting back going, wow, this is cool. This is great to watch. It's a great product. The girls' skill level is phenomenal. They have a red hot crack. Look, you look at all levels, but AFLW in particular, the girls are red hot at the contest. So that's and that's great to see and great to watch. So every sport has participation's gone through the roof. One, because of pathways. I think there's some genuine pathways now for girls coming through to reach, whatever level they think they can get to. So once you create the pathways and you've got the competition right at the top setting the standard, that's where I think the growth comes from. And, it excites all of us really to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see it on their faces when they're playing as well, how much it means to them and how much they have fun out there. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So it's a great thing, and obviously big supporters of everything that's happening in that space. But we will move on. We have a little segment here on the podcast called The Pressure Cooker, which is just a few quick fire questions that we like to reel off to you. Nothing too crazy. So I'll hit the little sting. And
why has my body language just changed all of a sudden? Talking about those nerves coming into it.
Nervous. It's all right. It's all right. You don't have to be nervous. It's fine. So I'll hit the little sting, and we'll crack this off.
Alrighty. Who's your tip for the flag this year?
Outside of the Bulldogs, are we talking?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
We will. If the Bulldogs don't win it, I tipped Port Adelaide at the start of the year, so I think they're not too far away from. They're playing their best footy at the moment. Their three young guns are unbelievable, so I'm going to stick with Port Adelaide.
And for my question, I didn't factor the Bulldogs part into this. So other than Marcus Bontempelli, who would be your tip for the Brownlow?
Well, we hope that my daughter is a singer, and she's just written a song about Marcus Bontempelli called The Bont. So check that out on Spotify. We hope he wins it for that fact. But so probably Ollie Wines, Clayton Oliver, maybe, or I had a little bit to do with Sam Walsh coming through the junior programs, working with the AFL Academy, and great young man. And the way he's playing his footy's been just first class, hasn't it? So sneaky would be Sam Walsh, and I'd love to see that. And what might put it in his favour is he's been kicking last quarter goals recently, so he's probably right in the eyes of the umpires when it matters late in the game.
Oh, geez, I like that. Massive Carlton supporter, so I'd love to see Sam Walsh win it, that's for sure. And those last quarter goals, mate, they've been
Yes.
fantastic. What about the rising star?
Oh, Tom Green, probably Luke Jackson, the main two. I think it's been a pretty even year. The young fellas that were playing well at the start of the year have dropped off a little bit, and then now you've got guys playing well at the back half that are probably going to remain in the sights of the All-Australian selectors who pick the rising star. So I think it's more those guys that are finishing off, the strongest in Jackson and Green that are probably going to take it out. Luke Jackson's probably just edged in front with his last three performances.
Yeah, I think so as well. He's flying his last half of the year, especially. And then the last question for the Pressure Cooker today: who would be your favourite current day player? And I'll get you to give us one from the Dogs and then one from just the rest of the AFL, because I know you're going to have a bias. So we'll get both.
Favorite current day player. I love. Can I give you two? Is that okay?
Yeah, give us as many as you want. Yeah.
All right. So I love Oscar Allen's my favorite player in the competition. I love him, and not far behind is Isaac Heaney. So I love those. I love those two guys with the way that they go about it. My favourite Bulldog outside of the Bont is Josh Dunkley. So I love the way Dunks plays his footy.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, Josh Dunkley and he's very important to the Dogs. They missed him when he was out too, so could be that missing link. But that is it. That is the Pressure Cooker done. Hopefully that wasn't too hard for you.
It was okay.
I can see you still sweating. It's all right. It's over now. Relax.
That's pretty much it for the episode tonight. It's been great having you on, mate. It's greatly appreciated, and yeah, we're very thankful for your time. So yeah, really, again, thanks from both of us, and hopefully the Doggies can get another premiership for you.
I hope so, boys. Look, thanks very much for the opportunity. It's great to jump on. Although you went to a couple of my colleagues first, that's all forgiven now since being through it. But no, it was honestly great fun, and thanks very much for the chance.